Hello, beautiful souls. I'm going to talk today about this paradox about being spiritual, and it's coming from reflections I've had lately. I've been feeling something shifting within me about, can I just live an ordinary life? Can life just be ordinary? And who am I if I'm nobody? So if I'm not striving to be, who am I then? And I've come to realize that there's this great paradox about being spiritual. So I'm going to discuss how this has been unfolding for me lately, and then bring in Ashtar to address this. And this is for people who are very dedicated on their spiritual path and who are people who are of service to others, and what that means and how we can get pulled into a certain direction with that. And I had a session with a client who really answered this exploring that I had been doing about this. It was just a perfect reflection, and it felt like a lot of answers came through, and she gave me permission to share a bit about the experience that we had together. So stay tuned if that interests you. It'll end with a channeling from Ashtar, and pardon me if there's time, also some light language to anchor it all in. Okay, so what started this process is, I'm going to look at my notes just to make sure I touch everything, is this feeling a shift within me and feeling things wanting to change. And for one thing, wanting to do more art. And I've been thinking that for 2 years now and still haven't moved into doing more art. So I actually switched around my home, made my office into a bigger room so that I can have space to do my art and bring that alive. And part of this shift also then has been this exploring of striving and thinking there's something to accomplish, this big thing that needs to happen. And I've been asking this question, what if life is just ordinary? What if there's no big thing to achieve, no big life purpose? I think for a lot of us, especially light workers who come in to serve the world, and that's really who I'm talking to here, is people who have this clear intention where they know they want to be of service to the earth and to humanity and to our ascension. And often we take it on as this big task. And I think there's energy underneath that we get to the point where we can just let go of it. And I've said, I want to stop being spiritual, which I know is a joke because there's no way I could stop being spiritual. My whole essence, my whole nature is spiritual, and yet it can look very different. So I've been asking this question, can I be nobody? Who am I if I'm nobody? And by nobody, of course, I mean like not this big purpose to meet or this big life to live or so much to achieve. What if I just do my days, whatever wants to arise that day, and can I trust that life will look after me is another piece of it, living that way. And in the ordinary life, it's like there's not that big thing to achieve and strive for. And I think about people who live tribally in the Amazon, for example, and their whole lives are gathering food and just creating shelter and taking care of the children and being together in community and hunting and gathering, and that's their life. And who's to say their life is any less purposeful than those of us who are living in a very different world, rushing off to work every day or with our own business, thinking we need to do this and that in order to maintain. Who's to say their lives are less significant? And I'm getting to the point where I think many people may be, especially in this year of 2020 that's been so intense, that the idea of just living an ordinary life, it takes me back to my grandparents. I remember when I was quite young, we lived with my grandparents for a while, and they were retired, but their life was very much sitting on the veranda in the evening, listening to the owl and watching the bats fly by and I remember as a little girl delivering water out to people who were working on the street, paving the street on a hot summer's day, and just very simple little things. They would go fishing on the weekends and we would go on picnics. And I remember years ago someone suggesting a picnic to me, and I thought they had lost their mind. Like, what? Like, go on a picnic? It just felt so ordinary and so mundane and so unexciting. And here I am now thinking a life like that is really what we're coming home to. That the simplicity of simply being present in our lives. And this is what leads me to my friend that I was working with the light language. Just being present with our lives can be enough. And so I've been contemplating all of this as I feel something want to shift within me. And part of it is having more time to paint and trusting that I can let go of what I think I need to be doing and just give myself that space to have the time to paint. Can I book a day off a week and not see clients and just paint? And knowing that in one level, the joy of doing that and the creativity that literally has been wanting to come through me for a couple of years now will lead me into the next step that I'm really seeking and yearning for. And it's going to come from just following my heart promptings and my intuition. And so this friend came for a light language session, and we had a session last month, and in the session last month, it talked about her being more in her life and even in her home. And that came up again. And she said, she didn't really know how to do that. So what came up this time was that the guides were saying that she's so busy being spiritual, and she is also retired. She has a lot of time, although time is certainly very different these days. She starts her mornings by meditating and offering healing to the earth and to humanity and Gaia. And she does the same thing before she goes to bed at night. And what the guide said was that it's really creating this focus that is outside of herself. For one thing, it's lifting her outside of herself so she's not really present in her own life. But another piece of what came through is that there's nobody to rescue. There are no victims in the world. And many people, might wonder, how could we say that? And when I said this to her, she realized it was her ego who felt it needed to be of service that way and offer this healing and do all that work, and yet at the same time not being fully present in her own life. And when I say that there are no victims, what I'm getting at is that there are people on earth having experiences. That's what all of this is. We are all individuals having experiences. We are having the experiences that are the most suitable for our own personal evolution and growth. And if we think we need to rescue anyone, then for one, we believe in victimization. Therefore, we're perpetrating victims in the world. And I believe somewhere in there, we must also be believing that we are a victim, because I feel that it's not until we've released any sense of victimhood within ourselves that we then progress and know that there's nobody to rescue. And as part of this, they asked her to stop these morning rituals and to actually be creating in her own life. So to start drawing or painting or doing cross stitch or woodwork, something that would be actually bringing her whole energy into her life, which could seem rather ordinary to just be doing what you love to do with some woodwork or some cross stitch. And part of what she shared with me as this was going through was that there was something in her throat. And when I looked at that, I saw that symbol of the snake swallowing its tail. And that symbol is representing transformation and the completion of the circle, the completion of the cycle, and then being completely transformed. And I think it represents the way I'm feeling all my life. I felt so spiritual, and now I just want to be ordinary. And the transformation in that, the snake swallowing its tail, is that we come full circle and we realize that there's nothing more spiritual than being here, living our lives, being who we are without this big purpose. What I realized was that being is achieving, simply being, and do what we do and let life flow through us. That's achieving everything we need to be. And for her, the reason that she felt something in her throat was because she was rejecting this tail of the snake being consumed. I saw it come to just above her heart, and then it got rejected. And it was this process of feeling like she needed to do so much healing, in a sense, rescue the world, that was allowing her from completing this process of understanding that spirituality is just being us, being you, being ourselves. And in that process, we're doing everything that we need to be doing for the world. So it's this feeling that we no longer have to strive so hard and to do. And I'm realizing that that's really a paradigm that was placed upon us that was never meant to be. I know we were meant to be on this earth with everything provided for us and just living in fullness and joy and expanding our soul's evolution by having the experience of being here. And so I think we can come to this place in time, for people who are just starting on their spiritual journey, then that spiritual piece is very important. This is part of a cycle. You don't get to the part where you're swallowing the tail of the snake until you've lived that journey of being the snake. But for many who I believe listen to my channel, that you're at this place where you've been doing this spiritual work for some time. And so I'm throwing this out as an invitation to explore that, can life be more ordinary and less striving? And can we really know that there are no victims in the world? There are simply people living what's serving their highest good. And this doesn't mean that we don't help people and support people when they feel they need that and when we feel it's appropriate to do that. This is not to dismiss being a good person in the world and being kind and caring and generous. That's not it at all. When we are that, we can't not be that. Once you've come to that manner of being, you're not going to go backwards and give that up. But this is about knowing that even if we're helping someone, we're just offering a helping hand in the moment, but not this sort of overall sense of needing to rescue so much. So I've asked Ashtar if he would be willing to come in and address this, and he said yes. So I will invite him now to come and also deliver his perspective on all of this and what it means for us in this now moment. Greetings, beloved souls of earth. Greetings from the love and light of all that is. Greetings from the many beings who are watching over you in this time of great transition. Talk about the snake swallowing its tail. This is where you are in the cycle of humanity. You are about to swallow your tail, digest it, and start over again. You are about to step into this next level of ascension, which is the next level of development for humanity, moving into this higher frequency energy. And in order to move into that higher frequency, you must swallow and digest all of the learnings and past patterns of the old energy that you've been in. This is why Symbolically, a snake sheds its skin. It can't grow with the old skin that it had been living in. It has to let it go. And this is why the snake is also used for this symbol of swallowing its tail, because it's very representative of this cycle of letting go of the old, consuming all that was to move into another cycle. And we would say that this thought about life being ordinary and being less spiritual is indeed a manner of being in this next cycle. And yet it is in itself, again, a great paradox, because the level of spirituality actually rises, is more developed, but there's a deeper understanding of what it is. So there is that in the ascension and the higher dimensions, of course, still that spiritual way of being. But there's this deeper understanding and knowing that, as this one said, being is the spiritual existence. And there's this deeper awareness and understanding that the all that is creating everything. And so how could that not be spiritual? The very source of all life is the source of everything that's happening through you. So it is the most spiritual thing to do, is to allow yourself to simply be in flow with this source. And that is what many of you are coming to. And that is what this exploration is about, is understanding that there's no doing from the human perspective, that it is very much being in the flow of life. But there are so many patterns and belief systems and paradigms that have been placed upon you that keep you from simply allowing yourself to, one, trust that you can simply let go and be in the flow, and you will be cared for and you will be provided for and you won't be consumed by tribulation and darkness, as well as this personality mind that thinks it must rescue, do, achieve, either rescue oneself by achieving and striving, or rescue others, and in the process avoiding what's going on within oneself and wanting to save others because there's this difficulty being present with the self. There are so many of these programs placed over you in your 3D experience that this is what needs to be shed over and over and over. So go deeper and deeper and deeper, looking into what makes you think that you have to have this grand purpose in life. What makes you think that you need to be striving so hard? What are you really striving for? Many people have even lost the sense of what they're striving for. They think they're striving for happiness by having money and getting rich, or they think they're striving for spirituality and being a good person by being overly generous and overdoing for others, and in the process ignoring themselves and leaving themselves behind. So, beloveds, what we would say is that for many, this now time that you're in, after having lived this year of 2020, here you are at the end of the year of 2020. What has it been for you? What have you learned about yourself? What have you let go of? What are you ready to let go of that you've been afraid to let go of? What would your life be like if there wasn't any great purpose? Imagine what it would be like for life to be simpler, to have more time for the things that you love to do. Because all of this is of great service to life, to all life. And all of this, in a sense, is what it's going to be like to be you in a 5D frequency. As we have said, you're still going to be spiritual, but you're going to be doing it from a place where you know that there's no one to rescue. Because everybody is creating their own experience. And it's going to be a more loving experience. So there won't be the same level of wounding and victimhood that there is in this 3D existence that you've been living in. And so from the frequency of love, everything does simply flow, and everything is beautiful, generous support of one another. So we will leave you with that. And we will allow this one to bring through light language to activate this awareness of what it is to come to the end of a cycle, what it is to be in a cycle of completion, how it requires then digesting and understanding everything that you've been through in this cycle of humanity that has been eons of time. There's a lot to cycle through. However, that's not to be overwhelming, because who you are in this now moment is the culmination of all that you've been. And so you only have to do it in this now moment. But we would encourage you to give yourself time to explore where you feel the cycle is complete for you, where you feel that something new wants to awaken within you, and to explore where you resist trusting that and allowing that. Because part of this new frequency energy as well is really trusting that as you move into the flow of life, and by the flow of life, we mean the heart yearnings, the heart desires, because these desires come from the all that is. The all that is creative energy moving through you, and desires are creative energy. So you can become stagnant and resist them for fear of not knowing how it's going to unfold. Or you can have faith that as you embrace the creativity that wants to flow through you as magnificent change, that you will then be led in the direction of your highest good, which is therefore of the highest good of all. As each one of you evolves and allows yourself to become all that you've come to be and express all that you are, all the latent codes and abilities that you've been afraid to express for fear of being judged or ridiculed or even harmed. When you start to allow all of that to surface, from coming into a place of trusting and knowing that you are divinely guided and protected and safe in bringing it forward. Use discernment, beloveds. Always use discernment, and call upon the highest beings of light who work with you, your guides, your protectors, to be with you always. However, do not allow it to restrict you from expanding into the fullness of you and bringing the full expression of what wants to come alive within you into the world. Be wise, be discerning, be expansive, and be alive in the moment of now that wants to flow through you. Be aware of what that is. Give it contemplation so you can understand it and sense the direction. That is the new process for you as the snake swallows its tail, and the process begins again, but it begins by moving up the spiral to a new 0 point at a higher frequency, where then you begin the level of learning. It could be seen as similar except in a higher frequency, because then you begin to learn what it's like to live in that frequency. This is where you are, beloveds. And we leave you now with this beautiful light language of the ancestors coming forward to anchor this in and to thank this beloved channel for this opportunity to be present with you in this now moment. Okay, thanks to Ashtar. And I will call upon the ancient ones now to be present to bring through this language of light, this activation. Imanai no nanina manwaina nanai Iwach kiatna ichkana atma nachka ikana. Achikahai ikalawa iasha iashnaha. Iachmahina ishkna nanua. Iachmahna ishna atmatnetna. Huachkiatma iashkana atwaleshna. Ichkana amali iala ichkanai. Yachkia a ikshna atma iachkana ikshna. Ichna atwa etna makichna. Machkia wa alawa ichkanayakna iatna wa. Matka achkini achkiachna ma. Machka atwa ikna atwa lachka iakna. Uchikaha tiakai otake kishinaha. Machia wa iatna mikichka atwatne. Achkia wa ialalawa a. Yachkana, achkana iki. Achkane iki tikshna atma ana. That's so beautiful. They're just anchoring codes within us. And I saw us all standing again, gathered in front as the light language is coming through. And I saw us bowing to each other, honoring each other as they cleared anything that kept us from this understanding of the new frequencies of ascension. And then I saw us all as a group floating up, symbolic of moving into the higher frequencies. And in that place, they showed me that it's more of a group consciousness, which it can't not be. I guess the way to describe it is there's less of the knowing of separation consciousness. That's coming to me just as I'm sharing it now. That as we move into these higher frequencies, then there's less confusion about separation. And so it feels like more of a group consciousness, but actually that group consciousness cannot be. It's always there. But in this 3D dimension, we've had this sense of separation. And when that's gone, then we realize that we are all one heartbeat creating together. And yet we are, I guess you could say, a blood cell in the heart that's creating part of the unique frequency of that heartbeat. So it was very beautiful. So I will leave it there. Thank you so much for being present with me, and sending you so much love and inviting you to spread your wings and fly. Here we go.